Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just click the link in the show description to support now.
If you are a content creator and you want a great program that provides studio quality sound, especially when you're doing interviews, then I encourage you to check out Zencastr. That's right, Zencastr. It is my absolute favorite program to record with. I encourage everyone to check it out, okay? Visit Zencastr.com for more information. Enjoy.
You're locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke Loves Rasslin.
And there is no one that does it better than
Your host,
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
the Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
My name is Chris Hammill, and you're listening to Duke Loves Rasslin. I personally went from the top of the mountain, achieving everything I ever wanted in my career, in my professional life. I achieved the dream job that I've been wanting since I was 12 years old, and it was ripped away from me by people who, A, didn't deserve to be in their management position in the first place, and B, people who I never should have trusted in the first place. I had the stark reality of everything I expected about the radio and broadcasting business be not exactly what I dreamed it would be. And my professional life, my personal life, and my whole entire mental state took a gigantic collapse in 2018 and 2019. I went through a horrendous breakup with my ex at the time in 2018. I lost my job and my career and my identity in my career in 2019. And I had a very bad falling out with my brother, and we haven't spoken in over 3 years since then. And I contemplated doing some really stupid things to myself because I live right near a train track, and I wonder, is this going to be the one? But life, what I learned about life is not meant to be happy. You have to make life happy for yourself. And whatever you need to do to make life happy for you and your loved ones and your family, you need to do whatever you need to do. And quite frankly, fuck anyone else who gets in your way.
Chris Hammill, I got to tell you, man, I've been having my guests for the past year and a half, do their own open and do a declaration that really lets our listeners know what type of conversation is about to be had here. And I got to say, I can't think of any other open off the top of my head that is as powerful as what you just said there. So kudos to you, bro. That was inspirational.
I didn't just do like Dusty Rhodes. It's just hard times. Like I didn't just do that. Come on, man.
Listen, you did that and then some. You did that and then some because it's about the redemption. And I'll tell you, I think
I'm like Dolph Ziggler, where he's like, "It should have been me."
Yes, and he's going to inflict everything on the world because it has not been him before, but it damn sure is going to be him going forward, right?
I'm flattered, nevertheless, but essentially, you have to just take life by the balls and ignore anyone that tells you otherwise. If you want to do something, you have your mind set to it, you have to do it. And anyone who wants to get in your way, no matter what you feel about them as a person, you need to just push them aside and get to what you want to do.
You know, we're going to get into what your connection to pro wrestling is. This is a pro wrestling podcast primarily here. But before I even ask you that, talk to me about what has made you happy. What has made you feel good about life? Like, talk to me even over the past week or so. Anything. What's been the biggest thing that has made you feel like, yeah, man, this is, things are going very, very well right now?
Well, it's little things. So, I mean, 4th of July was just past Sunday when we went to a fireworks display, and the DJ played AC/DC in the background as fireworks were going up. So I'm like, oh, that's nice. AC/DC goes with everything. So that was a fun night. Had all the way up to having a great barbecue with friends prior, meeting with both my parents and, taking them out to dinner and me paying the bill for once because my parents always insist on paying for the bill because they invite me out. Covering the bill for your parents is an amazing feeling when you are like, yeah, I can afford to take my parents out to a nice restaurant and treat them for once. So there's those. My current career with photography and audio and video production, I do a lot of really fun things with digitally creative people. I work with musicians almost every day. And even though drummers can't keep a beat and bass players are literally the dumbest people on earth, the musicians in general are awesome people. I'm kidding, by the way, you bass players. Musicians are really the coolest people on earth. And I work with an event production company now that does live events. And I work with some national touring acts, and they are the coolest people you can ever meet. And I work part-time nights during the week at a music venue. And I have a lot of really talented local musicians come through that venue. And a few of them have actually gotten signed and gone, onto greater pasture. And I get to see them develop their sound at the venue I work at. And it's just really cool to feel like you're creating something really great that the people will enjoy and working with talented people to make that vision come true. And when I'm doing my current day job doing real estate photography, I get to photograph multi-million dollar homes, and I get to practice my photography skills. I get to hone my craft there, and that pays the bills to do everything else I want to do for fun. And I've gotten to a point mentally where yes, would I love to go back to broadcasting? Of course I would. Because I'm a psycho like that. I need to be a masochist in that sense with the state of broadcasting, but I miss it. But what I do with real estate photography, that pays all the bills and then some, and then everything else I do on the side is cake. So I'm doing well enough financially and in my career now where I can be really, I don't want to say content. That's the wrong word, but I could feel really good about what I do for a living and what I do with my life. So those things make me happy. And of course, above all else, I'm in a relationship with the most amazing woman I've ever met. And we've been together for almost 2 years, and we haven't had any argument. I just jinxed it now, but we haven't had a single, this is a real relationship fight argument. We get along so well, and we are so in sync with one another that it's terrifying to me because I've never had a relationship this good in my life. So career's good, finances are well, and I am in a wonderful relationship with an amazing woman. So I really have a really good life compared to what I had just 3 years ago.
Chris, that's a laundry list of just positivity, and that is so wonderful. I will say, though, it doesn't sound like your girlfriend is a wrestling fan, because if she was, you'd find plenty to argue about.
Oh, no. She can't be bothered with that. I tried to get her to go see Top Gun. I tried to get her to go see Top Gun Maverick, and she emphatically said, no, fuck Tom Cruise because of his Scientology. But also, I don't want to see a stupid airplane movie. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go see the dumb Zoom airplane movie. That's how we idiotically describe movies to one another. So no, she can't be bothered to watch wrestling. She thinks it's all kind of silly, which let's be honest, it kind of is.
Of course it is. That's why we love it so much. Of course it is. And you cracked the code, man.
So I go out of my way to troll her. Like the other day, I showed her that the whole Mark Henry and Mae Young with the hands segment, and she looked dumbfounded. She's like, "What am I watching? Like, what? This doesn't make sense." I'm like, so I did my best Vince McMahon impression. I'm like, this is good shit, right?
Listen, man, it's very difficult to explain to the outside world this thing that we seem to like so much. It's very difficult.
I grew up with wrestling. Everything is wrestling to me. I try to shoehorn in pro wrestling references anywhere I can go. Like, I'm still a fan, even though for the past 3 years, for I guess obvious reasons, I haven't really watched wrestling full time because the love just isn't there as much as it used to. But deep down, I know it still is. So it's like I try to, incorporate dumb wrestling references with anything. It's very easy for me to make a wrestling reference because there's just so much material there to go with.
Absolutely. And listen, we're talking about your wrestling fandom, but you will forever be connected to the industry because of your previous line of work there. So what was your position? What was your connection to pro wrestling professionally?
So, yes. So for those of you wrestling fans who are like, who the hell is this guy? I was the associate producer for Busted Open for the time that Alex Metz was the producer of the show. So if you ever hear LaGreca mention him either by Metz or, Dick Eagle, I think they call him that sometimes. I was the board op / associate producer. So anytime LaGreca brought me on the air, he always called me Hot Take for some reason, I guess because I my opinions on things go against like the norm. So he called me Hot Take, and I occasionally, coming back from break, would play mashups of metal songs with Japanese punk songs or whatever to like make the host laugh with whatever dopey mashup I can do. So once in a while I did that. But I also, and the reason why I was fired from Sirius, I ran the Busted Open YouTube page. So if you go on YouTube and search Busted Open, all those videos were from me. So that's my big contribution to the show's legacy and history.
When you first started with Busted Open, what was it like?
Well, to get to Busted Open, we have to rewind a little bit because I worked for Fight Nation, which was the channel that Busted Open is on. And before I got assigned to Fight Nation and working underneath the management of Fight Nation, I was working in what Sirius calls sports play-by-play, meaning whenever there's a sporting event on that you can listen to and watch the live score updates on your radios, there's a board up there monitoring that game and monitoring the highlights, so the sports department can get highlights from the game. So like if Aaron Rodgers throws a touchdown or whatever to Devontae Adams, you would get that highlight. There's a board up recording CDs and getting those highlights of those games. So that was my job prior to getting assigned to Fight Nation. But because Sirius would rather pay 3 part-timers instead of 1 full-timer, there were a lot of part-timers in play-by-play and only 1 manager overseeing everything. So I wanted to get full-time because I couldn't afford $15 an hour with 27 to 30 hours a week and commuting with New Jersey Transit and public transport. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pay the bills and do all that. So I needed to get full time. So I got in touch with Fight Nation and I got hired to Fight Nation, reassigned. I was still part-time, but I had set hours. So I can now do other jobs not at Sirius, which is what a lot of people there do. They work part-time there, and then they work for either other radio stations, other radio companies, or they do other work elsewhere. I had my music production. I was recording bands, so I had that, and I also had Sirius. So when I got assigned to Fight Nation, I was working the MMA shows, specifically Luke Thomas's show. And I worked with him for a while and, really honed my craft as a board op because Luke Thomas, for any of you who ever listen to him, he comes off as one of those types where it's like you either love the guy or you can't stand him because of how, I guess abrasive is the right word for it, but like the way that he portrays himself, he's either you love him or hate him type of guy. But he's actually a really nice dude behind the scenes. But anyway, I honed my craft as a board op and an associate producer there. I got to thinking the way Luke would think, and that's how you earn the trust of your hosts there, is you get to do the board opping, getting the audio, making sure that they go on the air and they sound all right, and you earn the trust of your talent, which is what if you have the trust of your talent, you're golden. So eventually, we all knew on Fight Nation that Busted Open was the number 1 show. And the number 1 show that, for your career to get noticed on, the number 1 show as far as like not named Howard Stern and NFL radio, Busted Open was the most listened to show in the entire company. Not named Howard Stern and NFL radio. We all knew that LaGreca is really fun behind the scenes, and we all know that he's a really easygoing guy. So he's a talent that we all wanted to work with. And of course, if you're a wrestling fan, getting to work with pro wrestlers and getting to work on that show would be a dream. And since me growing up with wrestling, that was my dream. My dream job was to get Busted Open. So I eventually got to Busted Open when the opportunity finally came. I've paid my dues. I've earned my keep, and management gave me the opportunity to work underneath Mets and work with Busted Open, and that's how I got on Busted Open.
Sirius XM, what is that? We know what radio is. We understand traditional terrestrial radio stations, but this is something else, man. This is XM satellite and all this other, cutting edge, top of the line stuff here. For you, what was a typical day like?
I mean, Sirius alone is pretty crazy. Like you think of a radio station, it's like, a couple of offices and then the radio studio. Sirius has like 20 or 30 of those studios. There's 2 floors in 1221, the building that they're in. It's they have on floor 36. It's just nothing but studios, row upon row of studios where you can walk by and see. You can see Opie and Anthony doing their thing. You can see NFL radio doing their thing. You can see NBA radio, Bravo, whatever. You can see celebrities walking in and out of studios at any given time during the day. So the environment is crazy there. So like you don't know who you're going to bump into or what's going on at any given time, even though you have a set list of things that you do every day for your show. The environment where, like one day, I was getting my morning tea and Mick Fleetwood was in the cafeteria. So me being a humongous Fleetwood Mac fan, I literally like stopped in my track. I'm like, oh my God, holy shit, Mick Fleetwood's right here. So I nervously asked him like to, take a picture, and like I had to talk about rumors and like, but it was just one of those days that you don't know who you're going to meet. So the environment at Sirius is wonderful in that sense, where if you like the type of environment where you don't know what you're going to encounter every day, Sirius is wonderful for that. So you have this first floor, which is all their studios, and then the second floor has like 1 or 2 studios, but that's all where the offices are. That's where all the suits sit. That's where your management sits, and that's where you sit to do your after show work. So that's the layout of Sirius. A typical day for me would have been getting up at finding the 6:30 train to get to the city and my office by 7:30, 8 o'clock. Busted Open would be from 9 a.m. to noon. Couple hours of show work. After that, I would be out of the building by 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And if I did shot video that day, I would get home and edit video until about 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I would hit the upload and pray that my internet didn't crap out, because I have really slow internet where I'm at. And the next morning, the video from yesterday's show would be up on the YouTube page. So I'm literally working almost 24/7 for this, and I'm finding ways to go to sleep at night. So that would be a typical day. But if you're part-time, you get there an hour before your show goes on the air, and you leave an hour after your show goes off the air. So if you worked like a 3-hour show, you would have like maybe a 5-hour day. And if you worked a 2-hour show, you'd have a 4-hour day, essentially.
So you had this job where, first of all, you're working in production. You're doing your thing here. What were your typical duties from a general standpoint? When we say production, what does that actually mean?
Well, and here's where people will hopefully understand the context of my firing. My job description is board opping. I'm Sulu. I'm running the console. I am flying the Enterprise in space. Like I'm making sure everything is going over the air. The levels are good. The hosts sound good, and I have all the audio clips on the board that we're going to play for that segment. I'm working with the producer, who usually sits to the right. They're manning the phones and they're directing the hosts. I'm just making sure the ship is sailing, because if the ship doesn't sail and there's an error, that's on you. If it starts with you, if something goes wrong, if you're an AP. So you're commanding the ship, you're board opping, and you're also fetching the audio for the show. So if on a typical Tuesday after Monday Night Raw, for instance, I would come in and you work a show long enough, you already know what your hosts are going to want, and you just naturally develop that chemistry. So I would get a couple of raw clips. I'd get a couple of other clips from a podcast. Like if Jericho said something on his show that Dave wanted to talk about, I would find the Jericho show and I would get all the clips before the show goes on the air. Afterward, they usually release one or two what we call audiograms, which is if you look at the Twitter accounts of any of the Fight Nation shows, it's usually an image with a animated voice wave or whatever with an image behind it and some graphics. And it's usually like 2.5 minutes. We put a couple of those out after the show, and we usually make a promo for the next week. And if Dave went on a rant or whatever, I would find creative ways to turn that into something. So Dave likes to sing a lot of the songs, and he likes to purposely butcher all the lyrics. So I took a lot of his butcherings of lyrics and I turned it into, I'm sure you probably heard it if you listen to the show, I turned it into one of those like cheesy 80s compilation CD commercials where it's like, oh, all the classic hits like this one and then this one. It would just be clips of Dave butchering songs. So that you think of creative ways to do that at the end of the shift. And if you're full-time, you're on the clock 24/7, because if Sirius is going to be like, oh, we're paying you a salary, you're ours essentially. If you're part-time, you get to leave when your shift's done, your scheduled time, because legally in New York, you cannot work above, at the time at least, you can't work above like 30 hours a week without have to offered mandatory health care for a company Sirius decides. So Sirius doesn't want to pay health care, so they cap you at 30 hours a week, 27 actually. So that would be a typical process of what my day would be like as far as like what I do during a day. And of course, doing the video, it never became part of my actual job description, but it became my job afterward when it started, catching on with everyone in the company and people started taking notice. So whatever creative steps you do and whatever creative things you do to get your show better or get noticed, that's now part of your job. It's never written in your contract. It's never written in your in like an email or whatever. That's just part of your job, and management expects you to do that. And if you don't do it, they're going to ask you why you're not doing that, because you got to break your back and produce content.
So this is really interesting. So when it comes to evaluations, every job is supposed to have some type of evaluation period.
Yep.
Hopefully that includes a raise,
yep,
or at least some type of discussion on what you need to do to improve upon your position, which may explain why you don't get a raise. So in those discussions, were these extra things that weren't initially part of the job description, were they brought up, or did you feel like
they
you were being
absolutely
marked by that? Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, no, they absolutely are. So evaluations, at least in the broadcasting, at least at Sirius, I can only talk about my experiences at Sirius. And from who I talk to that work elsewhere, they have almost relatively the same kind of feel about this, which is evaluations are the most real conversations you have with your direct superior. They list you the things that they like that you did the previous year. They list the things that they want you to improve on, and they usually give you a bump in raise. I could tell you personally, full disclosure, I started when I got to Sirius, when I got full-time at Sirius, I was around 42 a year when I first got full-time and started. When at the time I got fired, which is, I want to say about 3 years after that, I was at 49. So in 3 years, I bumped up almost maybe 7,000-8,000 in total salary. So that's me personally. Other people, I'm sure if you are viewed more valuable in the eyes of the company, you probably get more of a pay bump. But that was just my personal experience. I never went above 50,000 a year.
The YouTube channel for Busted Open Radio, you were involved in that. Did they have a YouTube channel before you?
They did. A former producer had it, and before his dismissal of the show, before he was removed, he ran it, but it was mostly just like, cell phone videos, maybe a GoPro once in a while. Like it was just really badly shot. The shots weren't well lit, but it gave people of the show, it gave the fans of the show a chance to see behind the scenes. They got a chance to see LaGreca and Doug Mortman doing their thing, and people loved seeing that. And for some reason, Sirius never bit on that apple until, right at the time when I got dismissed. So a lot of people filmed YouTube videos and put it up on their YouTube page, and Sirius never really cared about it. So this former producer started the YouTube page. They started, getting a few subscribers, and then he got dismissed. And then the channel sat there for a few years, not getting updated because no one was using it. And then one time, I'll never forget this meeting. I was in with the other producers and the other sports producers. So we had APs and producers from NFL radio, all of sports, in one room. And it was one of these really annoying, really long PowerPoint presentations of how we need to do radio, because that's one thing that the big cats would always try to enforce on us is you're not doing radio properly. Even though your phone lines are always lit up and you're always getting interactions, you don't know how to do radio properly. So we want you to do reads at every quarter hour, blah, 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 blah. They're like, all right, whatever. And then the opportunity came up where they're like, what can we do to further engage audience members? And I immediately was like, we need video. We need video. We need video of the studio. We need video of the guests in studio. And who wouldn't like seeing LaGreca doing his rant and throwing his fists in the air? Because the people who listen to the show don't see LaGreca doing his rant and how red his face gets and how hysterical he gets when he's really pissed off. So I'm like, we need video of this. The people want to see this. I volunteer as tribute. Let me do this. And they're like, okay, do it. And the YouTube page of Busted Open had maybe 5,000 subs at the time when I took over. And I ran with it to the point where at the time of my firing, it had 62,000 in less than, I want to say, 2.5 years, maybe 2 years I was running it. And it's funny. I checked it just the other day. It has almost 73,000 now. So in the 3 years of not being updated, not promoted, it gained another 12,000 subs. So I'm like, they had a gold mine with this thing because of all of the algorithm manipulating I did to try to get like as much people to follow as possible. And at the end of every video, I put a link to get the free trial for Sirius XM and the link to subscribe. So there is no doubt in my mind that Busted Open, maybe it is my ego talking here, but I'm convinced that Busted Open grew the way it did online because of part of the reason is because of the work that I did with the YouTube page. So that's how I came into the running of the YouTube page.
So you were running the YouTube page and you're putting out some excellent content, just like you stated. I mean, this isn't an opinion. We could see the growth from the time that you took over the YouTube page to, the online presence of Busted Open and what they chose to focus on, especially in terms of digital. At some point, monetization came up in conversation, right?
Yep. Well, the monetization came up because I suggested it. So, and this is where I, in hindsight, I never should have gone through with this because this whole situation is shady from the get-go. So to tell the whole story, I'll try to summarize it in bullet points here. So I was doing all the video work and doing stuff for Luke Thomas's YouTube page and also now Busted Open's YouTube page. I'm running it and I'm going to bed at maybe 11 to 1 o'clock in the morning because I get home from work at 6 o'clock and I'm editing for like six additional hours. I'm editing YouTube videos and putting everything together. I go to my boss and I say, look, I'm doing all this extra work. I'm doing more than any AP on the channel and, quite frankly, any other AP in sports. They're all just board ops and audio fetchers. I'm doing video. I'm doing social media marketing. I'm doing social media algorithm monetization here. I'm doing all of this. I should get a little bump in salary. And every single time I brought up a raise, I got no. I got no, I got empty promises, and I got sorry, there's nothing I can do. Meanwhile, they gave Howard Stern another $100 million, but they can't give me a raise. But you know, and look, I'm nowhere in comparison. I'm not in the least bit comparing myself to Howard Stern here. So, but the way that I saw it is, if the company is giving hundreds of millions of dollars to other shows, other people, blah blah blah, they should be able to give a little bit, just a little bit extra to the people who are really grinding, trying to help make the company better. And that's the way I saw it. And enough times I heard no, I saw that a couple of other YouTube channels that are Sirius XM shows, they're monetized. Our Luke Thomas's YouTube channel was monetized. So I'm like, well, why don't I just monetize the Busted Open page? And my manager essentially said, go for it. I got the okay on several different conversations. And this is where a contract should have been had, an email exchange should have been had, but I trusted my manager's word over anything else. So I monetize it, thinking that it would make a little bit of bucks here and there. I monetize it. I talked to I talked to LaGreca. I talked to Metz. I'm like, look, I'm doing all this video work, and if you guys want me to keep doing it, I'm going to monetize the channel because the company isn't going to give me an extra bump in salary. And they said verbatim, look, as far as we're concerned, whatever money you make with the videos, that's your work. You should be paid for the work that you're doing. So I got the blessing of Metz and LaGreca. I got the blessing from management. So I'm like, screw it. I'm going to pull the trigger. I pull the trigger and it starts generating a little bit. Like, I'm able to pay my car insurance bill. Like, it was maybe a couple of extra, maybe $100 or so extra dollars a month. And then the video that really kicked into high gear was when Jericho came in after he signed with AEW. When Jericho came in and he did that, the video, I think it's like over 2 million views now. That made the channel get significantly more financially good. And it got to the point where after WrestleMania, I was going to the 10-year anniversary party. I was going to have a meeting with the show, my manager, and all that, saying, look, the video, the YouTube page is making it. I'm not going to say exactly how much, but like, it was making a decent chunk of change. Let's just say that. And there are 1 or 2 months where it made enough where I'm like, it made a good chunk of change. So I was going to have a meeting. And because everything's just so busy all the time at Sirius, it never really happened. And then Sirius rolled out their video app. They were going to install cameras in the studio. They were going to have an entire video production department. And they were going to do their own thing on video, where if you want to see in-studio video, you got to subscribe to this other app that we're doing. And the ultimate goal with the YouTube page was, for those of you who listen to the show, they always joked about the Busted Open simulcast, the video simulcast for $9.99 a month, to always joke around about, hey, we're going to compete with the WWE Network, which at the time was only $10. The end game for the YouTube page was going to be the Busted Open video simulcast, where for a $9.99 subscription, which all that funding would go directly to the hosts, you would be able to watch the show. I would get a percentage of the AdSense revenue, and then the rest of the funds would get split up to either the company, the hosts, the adding new material for the show, funding trips, maybe a staff dinner night out, whatever. There would be an entire separate business generated from this YouTube page, and I had everything planned out, ready to present, but the meeting just never happened. And then eventually, I saw that YouTube pages from all over the company were, stopping production. And they eventually asked my boss, what's the status with Busted Open's YouTube page? And I still never got a direct answer why, but my boss decided to say, hey, he's doing this on his own. I have no knowledge of this monetization. So then, of course, HR brings me in. I show monthly reports of subscriber gains. I show reports of everything, and nevertheless, that's how I was fired. That's essentially what happened with me.
Talk to me about your coworkers there, because I mean, listen, you're a production guy, but there are a lot of other personalities there that you're working with, people who depend on your quality of work in order for them to do their quality of work. What was the response from them? Did anyone go to bat for you and try to stick up for you and get your job back?
I don't know. I can't honestly tell you that. The radio show business, whatever you want to call it, the entertainment industry is a cutthroat dog-eat-dog world. And if you are in the doghouse with management, HR, if you're in the hot seat as far as the company goes, it's their say. And if you want to go against it, you're guilt by association. There was an incident with a lot of part-timers getting screwed out of hours and not being able to make enough to survive. And then one of the people decided to, make an issue known that, hey, there's some shady stuff going on with management and hours and pay and all this. And a lot of people were fired because of it. A lot of managers were fired. And this person became an enemy in the eyes of the company. And they never got to where they wanted to go in the company, and they eventually just quit out of frustration because you're being forced to now work part-time for the rest of your career there. You can either be in a lose-lose scenario, or you can get out, because there's always going to be someone on the corner who wants to take your job, because that's the way the business works. But the people, I don't know for sure if anyone went to bat for me. I never asked. I never cared, because at the time when I got fired, I was just too pissed off to even care. I got a couple of empty, "Oh, dude, so sorry," and that's the last I ever heard from them. So out of all the people I ever talked to at Sirius, I think I talked to maybe only 2 or 3 people now today. And even then, it's just like occasional, "Hey, how you doing? How's things?" So I don't really know for sure.
I mean, it's pretty terrible. It's pretty terrible to be told that it's okay for you to do something, and not only told it's okay, but be encouraged to do it, because it is contributing to the team. It is growing the brand. And because people felt that you were underpaid, you were allowed to monetize the channel on YouTube, and then to turn around and, not only be reprimanded, but have your job taken from you for something that was approved. I mean,
it was approved, but here's how this company works. And I don't know if any other company works like this, but this is how Sirius works. If you are approved to do something, I can tell you a laundry list of people who have had free hotels, free vacations, free, I can't tell you how many meals people have had on company dime when they should have reported it. There are people everywhere that take advantage of company funding. I never did that type of shit. I went to my boss. I'm like, "Look, I don't make enough to survive here. And if I'm doing all this work, I should be paid for it." And I got the okay, and I will accept enough responsibility to admit that at that time, I should have had some form of written confirmation. I should have had some form of, written consent from my boss saying, "Yes, I approve you to do this." And I know in hindsight, I should have done that from the start. And if I never got that, I never should have gone through with it in the first place, because this turns into a he said, she said thing. It's my word against my boss's, and the company is always going to listen to the boss over the employee. So that's just the way it works.
I mean, it's heavy, man. It's heavy stuff. It's stuff that confuses me personally. I would be very angry about this. How did the way that you were let go affect your ability to continue to work in the industry as a whole?
Well, to be honest, I haven't worked in the industry since. I mean, people joke about people at Sirius joke about it, that there's like a black book where if your name gets put in it, like everyone, the radio business, everyone knows everybody. So if you piss off the wrong person, that person can put your name out to everyone in every company, and you'll never work again unless it's like in like, you know, East Bumblefuck, Mississippi or something where it's like completely irrelevant. But like, I'm convinced that I will never work in broadcasting again. And I have over 600 rejection emails from employers in the, you know, radio, broadcast, entertainment business, whatever you want to call it, saying, you know, thank you for your application. Unfortunately, you don't meet our qualifications. I don't have a bachelor's degree. I got my associates, and I went directly to work for Sirius when I got my associates. So I didn't feel like I needed to finish my schooling, because 5 years of professional experience at Sirius XM, hey, that should lead me somewhere, you know, but it never happened. And in a way, I'm kind of glad it never happened, because I wouldn't have the good things I have in my life now if I did get another job in New York. I wouldn't have met my girlfriend. I wouldn't have found a newfound sense of self-respect for myself professionally. I wouldn't have gotten over a lot of issues that I was going through personally, like in the midst of all this. So in a way, I'm kind of glad that I got rejected all those times, and I'm kind of glad that I never got work again from that. But if you're saying, do I miss it? Sorry, absolutely.
I mean, it's just wild, man. It's wild. And again, you know, when we see the growth of Busted Open, to know that you had so much to do with that from the production and the digital side, and to think that you were just tossed away the way that you were, it's pretty rotten. It's pretty rotten. It's pretty disappointing.
And I'm not the only one.
And
like, I'm not gonna bring names into it. Obviously, I'm obviously not gonna, you know, name drop anyone, but I will say this: the only person on Busted Open who has ever left the show voluntarily on their own for greater pasture is Alex Metz. Everyone else has been removed for certain circumstances. That's all I'm going to say. It's not just me. It doesn't take much to
terrible.
See where the breadcrumbs lead to. It doesn't take much to figure out where the breadcrumbs lead to. And thankfully, there is a new person in charge running Fight Nation, so hopefully things will be better. And that's all I'm going to say as far as like talking about my former manager.
Chris, do you have any advice for anybody else who is going through or has gone through something similar that you have? Because, I mean, look, man, we live in a society today where, you know, jobs are pretty tough out there. And, you know, for better or for worse, there's a lot of transitioning happening all over the nation, really all over the world. You've managed to get through it and land on your feet and come out even better today than you were back then. What advice do you have for others who are going through their process in their own way?
It's tough, man. I mean, I don't want to say that, you know, my skills and my talent got me through anything. I'm doing real estate photography now because my landlord happened to know a realtor that needed a photographer. And I happened to have the camera that I invested when I was at Sirius. So I had the tools already. I was already working with bands and musicians. So I naturally found, like, my girlfriend's roommate has a media production company that I'm working with now, doing live events and doing sound for them. And I recorded a band that happened to, the singer happened to work at the venue that I work at night. So like I'm blessed with a lot of right place, right time circumstances with what I do now. And I'm letting my skills, you know, back up, you know, my claims that, yeah, I can do this job, no problem. And it's earning my keep at everywhere I work now. So I don't want to say that like I magically pulled myself out. There's a lot of right place, right time circumstance that happened with me personally. But at the time when everything was falling apart, I was going through a really rough breakup at the same time that I was going through my firing at Sirius. I was going through The fact that my brother cut me out of his life and I haven't spoken to him since. So it's been over 3 years now since I spoke to him. I was going through 3 major events at once, and I contemplated ending my life. I was not showering. I was not bathing. I was writing out my unemployment for the 6 months of unemployment I had. It's just not doing anything. My place looked like one of those houses at Hoarders. I was not taking care of myself. I got low. A lot of people that I thought were my friends at Sirius turned out to not be friends at all. And I've heard the phrase, I can't be happy in my life if you're in it, enough times that I believe that I was a black sheep to everyone else's happiness. So I could not be any lower in 2019 than I was. But eventually I decided to finally take the first step and get out of the house. There was about a week and a half or so where I did not leave my house. I can remember maybe showering one of those days. Like I was a disgusting mess. And then one day it was really nice out. I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go to the beach at night and take photos because it was a new moon that night and I wanted to take a photo of the Milky Way. Just to say, hey, I took a photo of the Milky Way. So I drove down to the beach and I took the photos. I just fell in love with doing a lot of photography. I was like, I don't know if this is good or not, but I enjoy doing it. And that kickstarted a lot of random trips down to the Jersey Shore in the summer. And with the windows down and me being a 56-year-old man listening to yacht rock, all the way down to my boy Michael McDonald, it got me thinking, you know what, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I can find a way to do this. So I came home. I spent one whole weekend of just gutting my place and cleaning it and getting it back to, where it was. And then I got my first job after Sirius, which was a photographer for a family of auto dealerships. Really jumping down the totem pole here. I was doing that, and then COVID hit 3 months later into the job. COVID hit. My job was deemed non-essential. I couldn't work. So then I had about 3 months left of unemployment from the state of New York. I tried to reaccess those unemployment funds. I got denied because they said, you found a job. I tried to contact New Jersey for unemployment. They said, you haven't worked in Jersey in 5 years, so we're not going to give you unemployment. Then I tried to apply for a couple of grants for the the federal government at the time had some benefits that they wanted to give out. Got denied for that. So I was miserable again. I was broke, and the bills kept coming in. So that's when my landlord said, my friend is a realtor and is looking for a photographer. And that's how I got started with real estate. He started paying me pretty decently. I was able to pay my bills. I maxed out all my credit cards to survive the 6 months I wasn't working. So I had a mountain of debt to climb. I was really terrified that I was going to be in this never-ending cycle. So I guess to get to the whole point of this was instead of getting angry at what happened and got angry at my situation, I got angry at myself for not doing anything. And that's what really snapped me back into place. One day I was getting a Grizzly Adams looking beard. I didn't shave for almost 2 months. And I was looking at myself in the mirror looking miserable. I saw crumbs of food in my beard still. I looked at myself and I just got angry at how disgusting I looked in my reflection. And that's what kickstarted the motivation to get my shit together, clean up, and just get back out there working. No matter what it was, no matter what I was doing, I got back out working. I went back to working part-time at the local pizzeria, just doing whatever I need to do to get money in my pocket. And then real estate photography started to kick off. So I quit, making pizzas, and I got back to doing real estate photography full-time. And that's what led to working with more bands. That's what led to what I do today. And then one day I was thinking I'm finally ready to move on emotionally and find someone else. One day when I found my girlfriend on a dating website, and we clicked, and this woman has sparked so much motivation in me to do better than I did yesterday that I don't think I would be where I am today if it isn't for her. I know this is a cliche cop-out, but like I would not be where I am today if it isn't for her. And what really started for me, and I guess my only advice that I could give is, if you're feeling really down and you're feeling really low and you're feeling like your entire life is being ripped away from you or has been ripped away from you in the first place, realize that, again, I know this is probably cliche, but like, it's temporary. If you're going to feel, if you let something temporary be the norm, then you're done. You're going to be dead in the water right there. You're never going to move on. Don't get me wrong. I still to this day, if I think long enough about Sirius and what happened with me, I still get pretty angry about it because I had my dream job and it was ripped away from me because people were untrustworthy. I still get angry. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm as happy as can be. There are still things that still get to me. There are still two sides of my brain that still, like, you would go back to Sirius or broadcasting if it ever called you. But then again, you wouldn't have the career you have now. You wouldn't have a lot of, like, it's that back and forth in my head all the time. And what keeps me going is looking at myself in the mirror and saying, you know what, you can do better today than you did yesterday. And yesterday morning when I woke up, I didn't know how the day was going to go. And I ended up photographing and filming 2 multi-million-dollar homes. And I made close to $1,400 cash yesterday, when $1,400 was my 2-week pay at Sirius. I made more in one day than I did in 2 weeks at Sirius. So it's like, I have days like that and I feel good about what I have. And I surrounded myself with people who actually did support me. So all the people that never reached out to me after Sirius, I emotionally cut them out. I was like, you know what? You're not here for me now at my worst. So if you ever do reach out when I get to be in my best again, I don't want you in there. So there's a core list of people that I have in my life now that helped me get to where I am now. So yeah, I guess I know I've been rambling a little bit here, but that's the only advice I would give. So the best way people can catch up with me and stay in touch, my Twitter account is HamsGruber, and my Instagram account is Chris Hammill Photo. If you want to check out all of the dopey sunset pictures I take and a couple of the real estate listings I do, I know I'm selling myself great here. You can check out my Instagram, Chris Hammill Photo. That the links to my website are there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's HamsGruber.
Hey, my name is Zach Selwyn. I am the host of Parking Lot Payday on Access TV, and I'm listening to Duke Loves Rasslin.
Folks, as always, be kind to yourselves and be kind to others. Take it away, Tony Schiavone.
This is Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Rasslin.